What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Woodward Bets in the house. Wednesday night. Beer and Scott joining you here. Scott, how we doing, buddy? Coming off a subpar night for the best bets. You know, we're not always going to be able to go 3-0, 4-0. So we will rebound, but we're not going to hide from it. A lot of places out there, you know, they are going to hide. They're not going to be transparent. We're 4-4 in the week. So back to 500. But again, only as good as today. So we will do that at the end of the show. Find you guys some NBA winners, but today a very, very heavy NFL show. We're going to break down pretty much top to bottom the NFL slate, some of our favorite pickups, take a look at who's being picked up and who's dropped, and update injuries and so forth. So, Scott, how are you, my man?
Oh, I'm doing good. It's been actually a nice day here, nice fall day so far today. I know we got maybe potential, looks like a little bit of rain, but I was out there in the yard making sure everything was buttoned up and tidy to go here before that snow monster drops a foot of snow on us. Like I think it was like last year or the year before. I think didn't we get like the first snowfall was like freaking 2 feet or something? Like
Yeah.
it was
Yep.
just came out of nowhere. So just want to be sure I'm prepared this time. So I figured today might be my last day where it's above 60 to get out there and not have to freeze my tush off while I'm trying to do those things. You know, breaking them leaves, Chris, beat me up. So got to make
I
sure
was,
get that done.
Yep, just about to bust your chops. We're talking pre-show, and you got the lady out there raking leaves because it took such a toll on you last time. So, you know, we don't want you working too hard here. As the old man of the group, we'll get you indoors. We'll talk some football. I see some things on your sign. Well, one makes sense. Well, we're going to cover NFL today, but the little sign behind you always has some good nuggets on there. But I see a go green. Now, are you cheering for us to make money here at Woodward Bets? Are you suddenly a Dolphins fan? Are you liking the colors of my background? Like, what in the hell is that go green? Because you are a diehard Michigan fan, so I find it hard to believe that has anything to do with Michigan State.
You know what? I've decided to join forces this week with the Spartans, and we're going to go down to Ohio, and we're going to kick their ass. Not only the Lions are going to beat the Browns, and then Michigan State's going to beat the Sparties or the Buckies, and we're going to leave Ohio in the dust this weekend. Is what's going to end up happening. But yeah, I don't know about the Lions part, but I do like the Sparties' chance a little bit better than the Lions. But anyway. You know what? I don't normally root for Michigan State, but I just can't stand the Buckeyes. So as a fan, I mean, I think I have a few Buckeye friends. Actually, you know, I've tried to make it a little bit broaden my horizons, Chris, and adding some Buckeye friends. So I do have a few. So I understand where they come from. They don't have a sports team. I know why they're passionate. They don't have a professional team. So, I mean, that is their team. But you know what? I've had to spend some Columbus weekends in Columbus during college football weekend with the daughter. I know you like to travel. You know, you've traveled with softball and stuff like that. I've been down there for some soccer tournaments. And you know what? I made it clear to a few people that I was a Buckeye fan or a Michigan fan. And you know what? They'll tell you. They love beating us, but it's really not as much fun when, you know, they're stomping on us. They might tell you, yeah, you know, we want to always win, of course, but you know when it's that Michigan number 1, number 2 or something like that, it's a lot more fun for everybody. And I think the Big Ten needs to have 3 or 4 or 5 good teams to really be a powerhouse and get noticed in the conference. So yeah, I'm rooting for we need the tide to turn here in the Big Ten. I'm tired of them Buckeyes up at the top. So hey, if it was your Wisconsin team, I'd be rooting for Wisconsin this week. But so I'm going to suck it up. I knew that might get a little bit of attention. I'll probably have some of my Sparty buddies text me a picture of this and say, what the hell is that? They might think I'm joking, you know, pull the old Snoopy, you know, with the football kick and might pull it back. You know, they might think I might do that. But no, Chris, I'm serious. I will be happy as can be if the Sparties can go down there and whoop them.
What I've learned, the one thing most of the Midwest has in common is we can all hate Ohio State together. Whoever you root for, Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois, I could go on and on and on. We can all enjoy hating on Ohio State. Now, of course, that's because they've been so damn good here over the last 10, 15, 20 years. They definitely are the juggernaut here in the Big Ten, as we know, but just a little shocked to see that on your sign there, but I get the logic. I'm still, again, I think you might Snoopy the boys there and say, I'm just kidding. But we digress. So let's talk a little free agency. A lot of waivers ran last night, so we kind of gave you some of our favorite plays. Cam Newton sounds like he's going to be the starter, Scott. We weren't quite sure yesterday what the plan was going to be, but turns out it looks like he's taking the majority of first-team snaps. So Cam Newton against Ron Rivera this week, and Washington coming to town. So that'll be interesting. We talked A.J. Dillon, obviously a primary ad. If he's out there, we know he's probably owned in the majority of leagues. Stevenson's probably still out there in a few leagues. Hopefully you grabbed him and see what happens. We don't know what it looks like with Damian Harris and Stevenson both healthy, so that's yet to come. Wayne Gallman, maybe he gets more work with Cordero Patterson potentially being a game-time decision on Thursday night, Marcus Johnson. So, Scott, anything surprising in your waivers last night? There wasn't a lot in mine. No Dillon in any leagues. Stevenson was pretty much gone in a lot of leagues. I did add some Marcus Johnson. One name we talked about yesterday, Deonta Foreman, another guy that I made a priority last night to add in any leagues he was available. Looks like, I don't know if it's going to be him, Peterson, but that is a run-heavy team. He got a lot of work in that first game. Gets a matchup with his former team here this week. So Foreman, another name to add to the list here for this week. So anything surprising out there in Waiverland last night?
No, I mean, in the few leagues that I'm in, I did try to go after Stevenson. I did end up getting him in one. Foreman's a guy who is interesting too, like you mentioned, just because of the work he's got. And we know Tennessee is going to be a run first team. I can't imagine them really leaning on AP all that much, maybe for some short yardage, maybe some stuff like that. But Cam Newton, Chris, I think, I was doing a little bit more DFS research yesterday, just kind of diving into it as I normally do, just kind of looking, and man, my paper and my pen just kept taking me to Cam Newton, like in DFS, like maybe this isn't a bad play this week. And then my brain's telling me, no, what are you thinking? Like I was almost like arguing with myself, like, am I really seriously considering playing Cam Newton this week? Like I was having, but Washington has just been so bad. And I think, with all the weapons Cam has, he could just dump it to CMC and he could rip it for 70 yards, so I do like all the weapons around him. It'll be interesting to see how everything pans out, but I think you'll get a lot of short dink and dunks to receivers and to CMC. And I don't mind having CMC, attached to this end of them screen passes from any quarterback you play.
Yeah, the interesting note here is FanDuel priced him up. He's $7,500 on FanDuel. So you're talking about in the same price range, $200 cheaper than Jalen Hurts, $200 cheaper than Aaron Rodgers, a little bit more expensive than guys like Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow, who's in a great spot, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr. So FanDuel, you really got to, that's a tough price to pay for Cam Newton. Now you go over to DraftKings, he's $5,100, Scott. Now we're talking about Zach Wilson, who's not even playing. Jared Goff is $5,100. Tyrod Taylor, $5,000. Case Keenum is more expensive than Cam Newton. So it's kind of like we talk about, shop around for your lines. There's so many sports books out there. They all want to have their unique lines. Yeah, you'll get the same line for the majority of times, but sometimes you can find, that half or an extra point somewhere. Same thing with DFS. There's a lot of sites to play on. Now, FanDuel and DraftKings, obviously, the main two, but that's quite a pricing discrepancy there, Scott. FanDuel, it's kind of tough to pull that trigger. DraftKings at just $5,100. I'm more willing to take a shot over there on Cam.
Yeah, I think Cam will be pretty chalky actually for $5,100 over there on DK. But you talk about FanDuel and what you mentioned, some of them guys around him, and then you really got to think to yourself, in a large entry field tournament, how many people are going to click on Cam? So
Right.
You're almost automatically different right there on FanDuel, because the guys around him, he's going to be the fifth and sixth choice probably, with the Aaron Rodgers and the Hurts and the guys like that you mentioned. So yeah, that would be he'd be really low owned probably on FanDuel, where, on DraftKings. But, you mentioned the two pricing with the sites, Chris. I will say, and I'll admit, I play almost all my action on FanDuel. I've been playing a little bit, I play the showdown stuff more on DK. But even in like baseball and football, I like to compare the two prices. You might, like in baseball, for example, a pitcher, you might see a low price pitcher on one of the sites, and then he's priced up higher on another, and he may be a rookie. Now you're asking yourself, why? What do they know? And then you look up his AAA number, and the dude's a fireballer. They already know he's a strikeout pitcher. So, there's a lot of times you can get information because one of the sites may be up on the algorithm a little bit more than the other. So I kind of like to like to compare, especially the defenses in DFS for football. It's amazing how much different some of these prices are. It's very rare that, out of the top 10 on each side, you might find a top 5 defense on FanDuel that's not even in the top 10 on DraftKings. So, sometimes I do like to pay attention to maybe you get yourself a little bit of value on one site compared to the other, just compared to the pricing that they offer.
Yeah, it was a good point. You can be contrarian too, and one guy's a lot more expensive on say FanDuel, like this week with Cam. Like I said, a lot of people aren't going to click that button because some of the other names that are there. A lot of people play on both sites, so I'll get my exposure on DraftKings. So it really depends on what format you're playing. Cash games, I think you go Cam. He's cheap. It's going to allow you to load up on DraftKings. FanDuel, maybe tournaments is the way to go with Cam because that ownership could be so low. But quarterback generally, ownership pretty spread out. There's so many good options, so many different stacks you can build. That's the one position I generally don't worry a ton about ownership. You still take a look at it, and we're talking big field GPPs, but it'll be interesting to see as we tick closer to Sunday what those ownerships look like on Cam Newton. So, Scott, it's Wednesday. That means our tilted segment here. We'll get to some free agents, who was the most added, most dropped here momentarily, and then we'll dive into this Week 11 slate with our first look. But you always got a few things up your sleeve here. So who has you tilted from last week in the sports world here?
Number 1 is Anthony Davis. That dude, I can't stand that guy, man. I swear, he is like he is just the absolute nail for me that just gets on. I mean, he just keeps putting it in the back every time, Chris. I mean, damn. I mean, if I play him, I just sit and wait, and I'm like, why has AD's points been stuck on what it is for the last 5 minutes? And it's like, I already know why, Chris. He's out for some stupid reason. Either he shit his pants, or his nail hurts, or his tooth hurts, or his belly hurts, or if he gets ejected. I mean, I've seen it all over the year. I've never seen a guy that leaves games more than him. And then when he does play and I don't play him, Chris, the jerk scores 70 points, man. And then you got to have him. And it's so annoying. I mean, I just can't get on the right side of that dude. That guy drives me crazy. But the other one too, Chris, I got is these Lions kickers. Like, damn, man, I think we've been so spoiled all these years here with these good kickers. So, like when I was growing, we had Eddie Murray. Then, obviously, we had Hansen, and, moving on through, we had Prater. But damn, man, we're pulling these dudes out of nowhere, and that guy in overtime there. I mean, I'm telling you right now, I can boot a 40-yarder. My 50-year-old can kick one. I'm pretty sure.
Nope.
So
nope.
He's like, nope. I was telling somebody today, it's nice out and the wind's blowing. I'm like, if it's blowing the way to the football field, let's go up there so I can get some wind-aided help. But I'm telling you, I mean, I know it's tough, but I played soccer for my whole life, and I still kick the ball around with my daughter. So as long as I don't tear my groin on that plant the first time, I think I'm good. I think I can get it up through there. But yeah, man, these kicking woes, it's been pretty bad. And then I think the guy that they let go here, White or somebody, I think he just won Special Teams Player of the Week. So, they can't get it right. But either way, when something like that so simple just seems to not be able to work for a professional team, I can understand the college kicking woes, and especially high school. You and I were at that high school game, and I mean, they're not booting, they're not booting 30, 40 yarders. I mean, that's a pretty good kick. And I didn't know they can jump over the line like that in high school. We saw them.
Oh yeah.
Dude jumped over the line and blocked the ball. They can't do that in the pros, but either way. But yeah, the kicking woes have been terrible here.
I got to call you out here. And I'm going to go back to the raking leaves. I mean, you're struggling to rake leaves, but now you're going to kick 40, 50-yard field goals. So, I mean, the Lions could call you up. I mean, clearly they need a kicker. Maybe you're the next in a long line of great Detroit kickers. So if you're listening out there, Brad Holmes, we got a kicker tryout here already. And all I'm asking, and this is not only for me, for our viewers as well, any field goals that you go out and attempt here over the next few days, please, please, please make sure there's video and no deleting it. I want to see the raw footage of what these field goals look like.
I'm going to walk up there, spin the ball like that, and then I'm going to boot it through and then turn around, and then I was going to go walk back and get my truck.
Our listeners demand some footage here of these field goals. So let's make that happen here. And I'm definitely willing to put a few dollars on a certain level of field goals. So you decide you want to get froggy, get out there one day. You let me know, and we'll set something up. But let's take a look at some of the free agents. Scott, a lot of guys we talked about. There's one guy in this list that we did not mention yesterday, and that's Jeff Wilson Jr. We got news about Elijah Mitchell dealing with a finger injury. So Wilson, kind of in that same vein of some of these, like a Gallman, maybe he was owned in some leagues, but probably still out there. Looked pretty good when he got the ball the other night. Looked explosive. So he's one of those guys getting healthy finally, middle of the season. So he's going to be fresh. But a lot of names we already covered. Ramondre Stevenson leading the way. Deontay Foreman, who I brought up, Cam Newton. A.J. Dillon, we talked about yesterday, is going to get a couple weeks as the lead back. Kendrick Bourne, this one interesting for New England, getting a lot of work as that New England offense starts to really take off. And the passing game has looked a lot better recently. Zane Gonzalez, a kicker ad for anyone dealing with bye injuries. Jeff Wilson, like I just mentioned. Gallman saw a lot of work with Atlanta last week. Mac Jones, a quarterback ad. We just mentioned that New England passing game doing well. And then, of course, Dan Arnold, who seems to be on this list every single week. I don't understand how this guy has not been owned in a majority of leagues yet, so maybe this is the week. But nothing earth-shattering on that list. I do like talking Jeff Wilson here. If Mitchell's out, I think he's next man up. I don't think you're going to see Trey Sermon. And, again, looked explosive when he got the ball. We know this guy is very good around the goal line, and you don't really have to worry about Trey Lance, seemingly. I was hopeful, put some first touchdown bets on Trey Lance, but looks like they put him on ice here and are going to roll with Jimmy G. So love the Jeff Wilson Jr. ad. So, Scott, anything here standing out, shocking, anything missing from this list?
Yeah, I agree with you on Jeff Wilson. I think, that dude has the potential to take you to the finish line if he ends up running all the way out here for San Francisco. That's a guy that you had late that could really help you out. So I definitely like that. Some of these other guys here, Stevenson might end up with a full-time job throughout the end of the year. Some of these guys, though, are just going to be, Band-Aid replacements as we move forward. But, yeah, I think Wilson could definitely come in and be the guy there in San Francisco for the rest of the year. We've seen him have a little bit of success in the past. And I think San Francisco, with getting Kittle back, we've seen how many times in the videos so far this week about Kittle smashing Von Miller, which, put him on his back, which I will say he did have help and he was falling backwards and they made a big deal about it with Von Miller. But anyway, Kittle's a great blocker. So I think Wilson's in a great spot here. So I do definitely like him moving forward.
Yeah, if he's a lead back, especially in an offense, so we know wants to run the ball. The less Jimmy G has to do, the better. So Wilson and company get a good matchup with Jacksonville. We'll talk about that game here momentarily. Let's take a look at the most dropped here, Scott. Jeremy McNichols leading the way. Obviously, the signing of Adrian Peterson, Deontay Foreman now on the scene. McNichols just not living up to what people thought he would be. Still think he could provide you some value as a passing game back, but we'll see. Matt Gay at the kicker position. Always see a bunch of kickers on this list. Adrian Peterson, maybe a little early, people bailing. I do expect Foreman to become the guy there, but running back depth, very hard to find. So kind of surprised on AP. Not that he's done anything, but it's a run-heavy team, and maybe Foreman isn't the guy. So he's a little surprising. Robert Woods got the unfortunate news last week. He will be done for the year. McManus on this list. Teddy Bridgewater really struggling there with that Denver offense. So we'll see if they end up going to Drew Lock, Russell Gage, Matt Ryan, some Atlanta guys. That offense looks horrific. Mike White out. We got news. Joe Flacco going to start for the Jets this week, Scott. So they're just playing some quarterback roulette here over the last couple weeks. And then Donovan Peoples-Jones of the Cleveland Browns, a little surprising as well. But Baker Mayfield been terrible, dealing with so many injuries here. We'll see if they end up shutting him down or what. But not much surprising on there. Again, AP a little surprising. Maybe Matt Ryan kind of surprising, but more so just because he's a big name. But most of these make a lot of sense in why they were dropped.
Yeah, Atlanta's definitely been struggling. I was a little bit surprised with Donovan Peoples-Jones, but other than that, yeah, I don't blame anybody for dropping any of these guys on here. You're getting down to the time of the year where, if you got a dude and you're not playing him, just get rid of him. Get rid of him. Find you maybe a better replacement. Stash a guy. Maybe, like a Gallman or somebody else that could potentially be good, or a Jeff Wilson, as we talked about. Don't sit on some of these guys here that, you don't even really feel comfortable playing. So, yeah, I don't mind any of these dudes getting the boot.
All right, let's jump into the NFL slate for Week 11. Again, we're going to do this every single Wednesday. Kind of take an early look, a first look at the slate, and highlight some plays that make sense. Take a look at the lines and the totals. So it's our initial look. If you want our complete thoughts on things heading into Sunday, get up early and join us Sunday morning at 9 a.m. We're going to come back and cover all the games again, update any injury situations, update our favorite plays in DFS, and of course, our best bets for the NFL. You'll have to come back on Sunday morning for those. So, Scott, let's dive in. Let's take a look here at our first game. We got my Packers traveling to Minnesota. Green Bay minus 2.5 at most places, 49 on the total here. So, Aaron Jones, obviously the big news on the Green Bay side, will miss this game. A.J. Dillon expected to step in as that starting running back. No major injuries on the Minnesota side of things. So, Scott, this one, a divisional game. The Green Bay defense has looked pretty good against receivers. They shut out Seattle. Been pretty good against running backs also. It's a little surprising with a lot of the pieces they're missing. You got to give them some credit here. The Minnesota defense, been up and down. They've had their moments. So the first thing that jumps out to me, this total seems a little bit too high. I know this is two teams that can score the ball, but it's also two teams that love to run the ball when possible. So 49 just seems a little bit too high here. Spread, I could see Minnesota winning this game. So I'm not jumping on anything on the spread here. Maybe you get that Green Bay minus 2.5 before it travels to 3. But first thing was that total being a tick too high, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. It does seem like it's a little bit too high for me as well. I just think, A.J. Dillon, that dude's a beast. I think the Packers are gonna lean on him a little bit here. The Minnesota is about in the middle of the pack for giving up points to running backs. So I think that this defense, they're gonna struggle a little bit with any kind of play action. So I think if they come out and they start running the ball well, I think then that's when later in the game here you might see Rodgers try to do a little play action to Davante Adams. But obviously here with the Vikings too, with Cook, I think Cook's an interesting guy this week. I don't think he'll be very high owned, but Cook for me is a guy that always has that big game potential, especially here at home. I don't mind him, but with all the weapons here in this game could easily break out into a track meet. But I'm gonna side with you, Chris. I think this game actually is going to be a little bit slower paced, and the Vikings are going to try to slow it down.
Let's not forget about Davante Adams here. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement for A.J. Dillon with good reason this week. We saw a lot of cheap running backs get there last week, so people tend to follow the same thing the following week. A lot of the masses out there, but Minnesota's kind of struggled with wide receivers here, especially over the last couple weeks. Third most fantasy points allowed over the last 4 weeks. So I like Adams. He's expensive, but we know that target share, Scott, is going to be massive. So feels like a game you could do a little mini correlation, whether it's Adams on one side and maybe Dalvin Cook, maybe you go Dillon and a Justin Jefferson, but definitely a game you're going to want some exposure to. But again, that total seems a little bit too high. So as of now, liking the under. Next game, we got New Orleans and Philadelphia. We'll see Alvin Kamara, if he's able to get back in that lineup here this week. Philadelphia may get a running back returning there as well. Miles Sanders window open. So they said he may be able to play this Sunday. So that kind of throws a wrench in any plans you had at Philadelphia. I don't know how many of us are playing Eagles running backs right now with Jordan Howard, Boston Scott. I mean, it's just a mess there right now. So an interesting game here, Scott. I guess the questions are, do we trust Jalen Hurts against a pretty good defense in New Orleans? On the Saints side, let's say Kamara is out. Do we trust anything there on that offense without him available?
I mean, it's going to be tough. For one, the Eagles they're 0-4 at home this year. So that was something that kind of stood out to me too. But I mean, this game here is a pretty bad, it's a bad matchup for the Eagles. I mean, the Saints have a solid run defense. So I think too, and you look at the Eagles, they only throw to one guy. So the Saints do have Marshawn Lattimore too. So I think that's going to be a problem here for the Eagles. But for me, I mean, this game here could be a game that is another one that could be low scoring. I think both teams are going to try to run the ball a little bit. I think you're going to see Philadelphia struggle to get going on offense. So if New Orleans can run the ball, I think they're gonna try to do so with Ingram and Kamara. So I think New Orleans here is going to control the pace. So I do like the under in this game too. I just don't see this Philadelphia offense having much success against Lattimore and these boys here in New Orleans.
I like Philadelphia in this spot. I know it doesn't make sense because Philly wants to run the ball. New Orleans very good against the run, but New Orleans has struggled with quarterbacks lately. So I think you're going to see Jalen Hurts get some stuff going here. Now we'll see if Dallas Goedert's able to go. That obviously is a big domino. Worry a little bit about Devonta Smith with Lattimore on the other side. Had a good game against A.J. Brown last week, who I had big expectations for. And I don't know if we can put that all on Lattimore, but he's certainly one of the best in the game. So, but Hurts is intriguing just with the upside he gives you. And this one opened up with New Orleans as the favorite. Now, I know a lot of this is probably Kamara driven, but it swung over to Philadelphia here. And that defense playing very well. They were the defense you wanted in DFS last week against Denver. So against Trevor Siemian, I'm still waiting for those wheels to fall off. Could happen this week. So give me Philadelphia as of now in this one. Next one, we got Baltimore and Chicago here. Baltimore -6 on the road, 45 on that total. And got news today, Scott. Lamar Jackson left practice dealing with an illness. They said it is not COVID related. So we'll see. It's early in the week, so I'm not panicking yet. I actually love the spot for Lamar Jackson and this passing offense here against Chicago. Bears side coming off the bye. Justin Fields been a lot better here of late. David Montgomery back in that lineup. So what are you seeing in this one, Ravens and Bears?
Yeah, this is going to be a decent game here. I know we've seen Lamar Jackson. He's been throwing the ball a lot better this year. The Bears have been pretty stingy with passing scores at home. They haven't allowed more than 2 all year so far at home. So I think, though, in this game here, you're going to see, maybe where Marquise Brown could maybe get loose here. I don't mind him. I think Mark Andrews is going to struggle a little bit. The Bears have been pretty tough against tight ends. So if anybody's going to be open for Lamar, I think it would be Brown just for that reason. But I think this game here is going to be another game that we might see that might be lower scoring. I think Lamar Jackson and Freeman are going to get a few carries between the two of them. I mean, you may see. Between the two, you might see 30 carries or so in between the two here against the Bears. So I don't mind that at all. I think the Bears here are they are in the top 10 as far as rushing, but I mean, the Baltimore, I think that's what they're going to want to come out and do. I don't think the Bears have seen a rushing quarterback like Lamar Jackson. Obviously, there's only a few of those guys in the league, but so I think they're going to struggle with that. I think you're going to see a lot of quarterback read options. And then for the Bears in this game here, I think, it's just been a nightmare so far for the Ravens as far as their pass defense. I mean, they've allowed 3 400-yard passers against them. I mean, I asked myself, if it wasn't Justin Fields, I think the Bears quarterback here would be in a pretty good spot. But, I mean, who can you really trust in this Bears offense, though, Chris? I mean, do you want to throw – do you want to click a button of a Darryl Mooney or a Allen Robinson or somebody like that? It's just so tough. I do think Cole Kmet could possibly get his first touchdown this year. The Ravens have been pretty poor against tight ends. They're about 29th or so against tight ends. But, I think this is interesting. It's just, where the Ravens have struggled. I mean, I don't know if the Bears are good enough really to exploit it.
Yeah, I do like both the passing games here. I like both quarterbacks in the spot. Both these teams bottom 5 in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks and receivers over the last month. So it's been a struggle for the defense on both sides, like you mentioned. So if I do have to, I like Fields. I don't necessarily feel like I have to pair him with somebody. It probably would be Mooney, who's actually not been playing too bad here over the last couple games. I know they're coming off a bye, but the 2 games before that, averaging over 16 DraftKings points a game. So he seems to be the guy Fields prefers over Allen Robinson. I don't hate the Kmet call. And then Baltimore, it's Hollywood Brown and it's Rashad Bateman for me. Andrews A tough matchup here, like you mentioned, with Chicago. So I like a lot of plays here, Scott. I think I like the over in this game as well. I think there's going to be some scoring here. Baltimore, you never know. They could come in and thrash Chicago. They could come in and look like they did against Miami. So they're always a nerve-wracking team to bet on the spread. I do think there'll be a little bit of recency bias, and people will lean towards Chicago, just what we saw last week against Miami. But I think there'll be points here. Generally not what you talk about with Bears games, but I'm liking the over at 45. Any leans on a bet here?
I think at this point in the week, I can't say I really have any kind of leans. I just think I do like the way San Fran played last week. They came out and played really, really well. So I definitely like San Fran, how they were playing. But I'm just going to kind of see here as the week goes on and see kind of how these numbers shake out. I can't say I'm really strong in either way on this one here, though. But I think at this point, I am leaning a little bit toward the Niners.
All right, well, the Niners is our next game, so Scott's giving a little preview here. He's already
San Francisco
against Jacksonville. You're all right. You're getting in on the Niners here, -7 in Jacksonville, 46 on the total. Niners look great in that win against the Rams the other night. Jacksonville battled in Indianapolis. I mean, they got down, they came back, they made it a game. So, again, injuries the situation to watch here. Is Elijah Mitchell going to be able to go? If not, Jeff Wilson feels like a guy that's going to be very cheap and very popular in DFS this week. I'll check his prices here momentarily. But, Scott, you clearly like the Niners here. You were talking for him before we even talked about him. Wilson, 5,100 on DraftKings and on FanDuel, checking in at 5,000. So he's the guy, Scott. Feels like a pretty good cash game play, even in tournaments. These cheap running backs, again, people are going to look that direction. So, you playing Wilson? You fading him? What do you think the ownership will be on him this week?
Yeah, I mean, I was excited about this game. I'm channeling my Uncle Urban here, Chris. And, I can't, my brain just goes back to the Uncle Herbs. But, yeah, I do really like the Niners in this spot. They've been playing really well. And if Wilson is going to be the guy, I think he's going to be another guy that's going to be fairly high owned, and especially on FanDuel. I'll have him on FanDuel if he ends up playing. So, definitely like the Niners here. I really like how they've been playing. Jacksonville has just been, kind of average getting things done. I don't really see, other than like Jamal Agnew and Arnold, I think these are the only guys that are really even relevant for me to even look at as far as Jacksonville goes. But Chris, is this Deebo Samuel? I mean, week in, week out, it seems like I'm watching the dude running down the sideline for a 40-yard touchdown. It's the dude's been one of the best. Obviously, if you got him on your team, as we mentioned before, you're probably doing really well in season-long leagues. But, man, it's kind of hard to ignore this guy.
Yeah, he's up to 7,800 on DraftKings. So he's sixth highest price receiver over there. Let's check him on FanDuel. 7,600 over there. And he's dealing with a little bit of a shin issue, but sounds like it's just day-to-day. Nothing to worry about. So it's getting a little expensive, but he continues to put big games on the board. So I do like the San Francisco side here as well. Kittle, always a great option at the tight end position. We'll see who the running back is, whoever it is. I like them here against Jacksonville. And you mentioned the problem with Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is not playing great. We haven't seen anything out of Chenault or Marvin Jones in weeks and months that we can really depend on. And do we really want to count on Agnew, Dan Arnold in our DFS lineup? So Arnold, I think, is a great season-long tight end pickup if he's still out there. Or hopefully you guys already added him. But the rest of it's really hard to trust. James Robinson will get there on volume alone, but feels like a San Francisco route in this one, Scott. So you still backing the Niners here, -7. Anything on the total? What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to back the Niners here minus the 7. I think they're just going to roll in there and put a whooping on them down there in Jacksonville. So, yeah, the 49ers at this point actually are one of my favorite bets. I like picking on the crappy teams. I'll say it over and over. I had a handful of teams that I think are in my bottom 5, and Jacksonville is one of them. So, though I like the way the Niners been playing, I think they're a little bit rejuvenated, getting Kittle back. He scored 2 touchdowns in his first 2 games. And like I mentioned, he's a hell of a blocker. He's a great addition to that line there. And if Wilson's in there, I think you'd be surprised. I think Wilson's one of them dudes that once you start watching him, you're like, damn, that dude is good. And then you're happy you have him. So I think Wilson's a guy that I'm definitely going to be playing if he's locked in.
Yeah, I agree. I think he could be a solid cash game option, and even in tournaments. Ownership at the running back position, less worrisome than ownership, say, at the wide receiver position. So we'll keep an eye on that in tournaments. Again, cash games, you're not worried about ownership. I think if he's the starter, he's going to be at the top of the list as far as running back plays go on Sunday. As far as the game, I worry a little bit about a letdown spot here, Scott. I mean, you come off a huge win. They have Minnesota next week, then Seattle, so they got some big games coming up. You travel across the country, early game here against a team that's not very good. I don't know that Jacksonville wins this game, but I think they could stay competitive here in this one. So no strong lean on it. You always feel nervous putting your dollars on Jacksonville, but I think I'm on the other side of this one where I do think they can stay competitive here and kind of surprise the Niners a little bit, like we saw with Buffalo, like we saw with Indianapolis. They've been competitive here. And this Niners defense, yeah, it looked good the other night, but it's not been an elite unit this season. So a little bit of a lean to Jacksonville here early in the week for me. Next game, we got your Lions, Scott, traveling to Cleveland. I know you mentioned you liked Cleveland the other day. If this thing got up to 14, you still like Cleveland. Did get a little bit of running back news here with the Browns. Kareem Hunt already ruled out for this week. So I know there was some optimism that he may return. I'm expecting Nick Chubb to be back. It seems like this COVID thing he's been about 10 days now. So we'll see. If not, obviously Dearness Johnson becomes a premier play again. So we'll update this one throughout the week. But basically, whoever the Cleveland running back is, I want them in my lineup. Detroit side, I think you could say the same for DeAndre Swift, Scott. 33 carries in that last game against Pittsburgh. And we saw Dan Campbell take over the play calling there and go even more run heavy than what Anthony Lynn has been doing. So does that continue here? Do you worry about the matchup, or are you just loving this volume for Swift, even though the touchdowns went to everybody but DeAndre Swift last week?
Yeah, Swift, I mean, he had 130 yards, like you mentioned, 33 carries. That is a lot. I mean, now that you mentioned with Dan Campbell, that's something that we do kind of want to pay attention to. I mean, in this game, though, I mean, Chris, if I really think that this Cleveland offensive line, like we said before earlier yesterday, like I think any one of us might be able to even run and get 100 yards behind them boys. They are just pushing defensive lines down the field. I mean, we saw Dearness Johnson light it up. So yes, I definitely want anybody who's running the ball back there for Cleveland. But these Lions here, they're just so tough to play. I mean, I don't want anything to do with the passing game. I mean, I'm done with Hawkinson. I don't really want to play any of these Lions guys, but receiver wise. But I think Swift is, especially with Williams out, is not a bad play. I think that's something that you may not see a lot of people go to. I think maybe combined, I would expect Swift to maybe get 100 yards total receiving and rushing, maybe fall in the end zone once, which isn't a bad game. But my question is, how much upside does he really have? I don't think this Cleveland defense. I mean, they've been solid. They've only allowed one 100-yard rusher so far this year. So I think Swift's in a tough spot, but it just seems like he's the only guy. I mean, he just seems to be getting a big percentage of the touches for that Lion offense. So I mean, you look around the NFL, how many guys are really getting that type of volume? So if I can get a guy like that and he's going to be low owned, I mean, we only need once or twice for him to break free, and he's going to be a slate breaker. So anybody getting them kind of touches, Chris, is something you really got to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, Cleveland been pretty good against running backs over the course of the season, but over the last month or so, it has been a little bit of a struggle, honestly. Fifth most fantasy points allowed. So Swift, it's always ugly because they're going to be playing from behind for the most part, but they're going to continue to get him the ball. And a little breaking news from our boys behind the glass, Tim Boyle taking first-team reps here with the Lions at the quarterback position, Scott. So sounds like Boyle may get a shot here, and if you don't know who that is, I'm very familiar with Tim Boyle. Sat behind Aaron Rodgers for a lot of years, and I always showed a lot of potential in preseason. That's pretty much the only time you saw him. Occasionally when Green Bay was up big, he'd come in the game, but I don't think it can get any worse than Jared Goff. So it sounds like the totals dropped a little bit here with this news. So I'll try to look at some of the updated numbers here on this game. Looks like we got 43.5 some 43s out there even. So this thing opened up at 46. So looks like 43.5, 44.5. Thoughts on Tim Boyle potentially being the quarterback? Does that change anything for you? For me, again, does it get any worse than what Jared Goff has been this season?
Yeah, you can't get much worse. I don't think it really changes all that much. I just think, the defenses obviously here are in play. If you got a fantasy defense that's sitting with the Browns, well, should be pretty happy about with this matchup here, obviously. But yeah, it doesn't really change much for me, Chris. I mean, really, the big elephant, so-called, in the room in this game here is going to be Cleveland's rushing game against that lying rush defense. So, I mean, they've given up 16 touchdowns. And four of these running backs so far have scored twice against them so far. So, as we said, whoever's running that ball for Cleveland when it gets down closer here on Sunday, especially if it's Nick Chubb, I'd almost pencil in for 2 touchdowns automatically.
Kind of like the Lions with the points here early on. Again, we'll see if this changes. This is not something I'm locking in here, but I mentioned it the other day that they've been competitive in so many games here. And Cleveland, again, this could be a look-ahead spot. They come home, they got their butts whooped against New England. Now you're coming home against Detroit. Probably get a lackluster effort. Baker Mayfield's got more injuries than you got from raking leaves. I mean, the guy's got the shoulder issue, this issue, that issue. I mean, he's beat up. Sure, Nick Chubb in a good spot. Dearness Johnson in a good spot. This Cleveland defense probably in a good spot. But I think the Lions remain competitive and keep it close here. So the spread has ballooned a little bit, Scott. Our friends over at FanDuel have this thing up to 11.5 already. So this thing is already on the move. So the higher it goes, to me, the more I like the Lions in the spot. Cleveland, back-to-back games with Baltimore coming up next as well. They have them next week, and it looks like a bye, and then face Baltimore again, which is a little weird scheduling quirk, but it feels like a spot the Lions can compete once again. So I know it's a head scratcher for you, but with all these points, I'm leaning the Lions here.
I can't do it. This is like a carnival game, buddy. You pay your money and you're all excited, and then when they actually win, you get some bullshit little prize. I mean, that's like the Lions here. It's like, it's like the risk isn't worth the reward for me. I don't feel as if, it's so frustrating too. You almost you start to question your intelligence. And when you place a bet on the Lions and then you're watching what happened to them against the Eagles, you're like, what did I do that for? Like, it was so stupid. So to me, that's the problem. Like I said, it's like, like walking up to that that video, that carnival game, and you think, you're going to win the big prize they got all showing up there, and then you win, and they reach under the little desk here, Chris, and they hand you a little duck, and you're like, what the hell is that? What about this big old lion over here? You're like, no, you got to win 17 times to get that.
You get this.
Exactly right. That's exactly, like betting on the Lions is like. So I pass. There's many other things I can do. I'd be happy if they just beat the Browns. That's good enough for me. But yeah, I'm not falling for that trick anymore.
Hey, 0-8-1, right? That's the record. 5-4 though against the spread this season. So they've been respectable against the number. I'm just saying that's a lot of points in the NFL. And sure, Cleveland could roll them, no doubt. But
52% of the money is coming in on the Lions. So hey, so far, majority are agreeing with you here.
And it's Wednesday. I may come to my senses by Sunday and be more in your camp. So we'll see. But
I mean, no Baker, maybe. So we both might have backups.
Keenum might be better than Baker. Just saying at this point. Yeah. So, all right, let's get out of Lions talk here. And let's move on to Washington and Carolina. This one very intriguing. We got Cam Newton looking like he's going to be the starting quarterback here for Carolina. His old coach, Ron Rivera, coming back to town. Who knows Cam Newton better than Ron Rivera? And I believe he was asked and said, yeah, I know how to handle Cam Newton. So I like Carolina in the spot, Scott. I like Cam in there. McCaffrey looked good last week. I think it will help guys like we saw Robbie Anderson finally do something, score a touchdown. DJ Moore, we'll see. We know Cam's not the best passing option, but I think it helps this offense, and the defense still playing well. And Washington just does not match up well with Carolina. You look at some of the matchups across the board. First of all, you got injuries like you always do at Washington. McLaurin questionable. The running back, Antonio Gibson, did not practice today either. So those two seemingly banged up every week. But Carolina have been so damn good against receivers, against running backs. So all the signs to me are pointing here to Carolina. As far as DFS goes, we talked Cam Newton already. McCaffrey always in play. Those receivers a little dicey, but if you are going to roll Cam out there, maybe you pick one of those guys to pair him with. So Carolina for me in this one. I'm having a tough time finding anything on Washington that's really standing out here, Scott. What do you got here, Washington and Carolina?
Yeah, I like Carolina. I think this is another team that's like a 1B team in the NFL. I think they're pretty good. I think Cam couldn't get a better opportunity than he's been presented right now going back here to Carolina. But in this game for Washington, Washington's going to have a lot of trouble here offensively. I mean, Carolina ranks top 5 against quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. They've held 7 of their quarterbacks they played so far. They've held under 200 yards, and they've not allowed anybody over 2 touchdowns. So in their last 4 games, I should say. So to me, I think Washington is going to struggle here. I don't like anybody in that offense. I think if anybody gets, anybody I may consider playing would be Terry McLaurin, but it's just really tough against Carolina. That secondary has only allowed 2 receivers to even get over 100 yards. So going to be tough there. But Chris, I think for me, CMC is such in a good spot here. Washington has struggled against pass catching backs. They've allowed 7 touchdowns to, receiving wise to running backs. So to me, I think CMC is in a great spot. And then too, Washington does not have Chase Young. So that's going to possibly give a little bit cleaner pocket for Newton. They've given up 12 touchdowns to wide receivers so far this year. So does that mean maybe Moore or Anderson might may get in there? Washington's 29th against wide receivers. So I think this is a really good spot here for Cam Newton. Washington's also 31st against quarterbacks. So we'll see. Like I said, the more I kept looking at it, I kept thinking, do I like Cam? I mean, if his name wasn't Cam Newton, and maybe it was another rushing guy, I may even be even more happy about it. But it's just like, for me, to me, it's just Cam's just one of them guys that's been frustrating. But like I said, I don't mind having a quarterback that's throwing screen passes to CMC against this Washington defense.
Yeah, the days of cheap McCaffrey are gone, though. We had a couple weeks where the price was down, coming off an injuries, back to the most expensive running back on both sites. FanDuel, he's up at, I believe he's 10,000 on FanDuel and 8,900 on DraftKings. But you mentioned DJ Moore there, Scott, 5,900 on DraftKings for DJ Moore, his cheapest price since week 3. So I do think there's some value there. You mentioned Washington struggles against wide receivers and opposing passing games. So can Cam get him the ball? I think so. And this guy's had 7 targets or more in every single game this season. So a big focal point of that offense. So I love McCaffrey like you do. I think DJ Moore a little bit too cheap in this matchup, and I think Carolina rolls here at home. Next game, we got Indianapolis traveling to take on the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo home favorites here at -7, big total at 50. So the Bills righted the ship last week. Josh Allen, the Diggs, huge combination there, putting people in great positions in DFS last week. The Colts struggle a little bit at home with Jacksonville here, Scott. So how does this one play out? Buffalo now is employing a 3-headed monster at running back. So I think you can toss all those guys out. I think Allen in another good spot here. If you want to go back to Diggs, I certainly understand that. The question is, what do we do with Jonathan Taylor? He's been playing at maybe the best of any running back in the league. Arguably, that offensive line's been phenomenal, but you run into a tough test here against this Buffalo Bills defense. So something's got to give here, Scott. Can we continue to ride Jonathan Taylor, or is it time to hop off here in this matchup with Buffalo?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for Jonathan Taylor. The Bills have not allowed more than 45 yards to any visiting running back this year. And even when they faced up against Derrick Henry, he only had 67 yards. But yeah, I think this is a tough matchup. I mean, I do like the fact that Jonathan Taylor's been getting more receiving yards, receiving opportunities. Definitely like that. Usually Hines, was taking some of them from him, but seems like they've been going to him a little bit more. But I mean, this here is going to be a pretty tough game here, especially in Buffalo. I don't know if Buffalo. I mean, a lot of people are projecting Buffalo to score a lot of points here. I don't mind Josh Allen, but he's not one of my favorites this week. But Indy's been really tough against quarterbacks and wide receivers this year. But, I mean, this offense is really good. Diggs just came off a monster performance where he had 162 yards and a touchdown against the Jets. But this one is I think is a tough matchup for Buffalo. I'm a little bit skeptical. If I was playing multiple teams, I may consider a Josh Allen team. I don't think he's probably going to be that high owned, but it's interesting. This is definitely an interesting matchup. The Colts are tough against the run, so as well as those receivers. So I think I don't know. I think Buffalo is going to have a hard time. I'm not really sure. I mean, like I said, they project well, but my instincts are telling me that the Colts are going to be giving them a hard time here.
See, I'm on the other side of this one. I think Buffalo rolls in this game. I'm surprised the spread is so low. I know the Colts have been playing well, but Buffalo is a team that loves to throw the ball. So, yes, Indianapolis is good against the run. That's fine. Buffalo doesn't want to run the ball. I mean, we're talking about a team in Indianapolis, bottom 5 against both quarterbacks and wide receivers. Buffalo, top 5 in both of those positions offensively. The Colts have allowed, I believe it's 20-some touchdown passes already. The most in the league, 23 touchdown passes already. So give me all the Bills in this one, and Buffalo minus the 7. I think the Colts are a little overvalued in the market right now. So this is one of my favorite spots here to target in DFS and betting. I really like the Colts in this game this week, or really like the Bills, I should say, this week against the Colts. All right, next game, Houston and Tennessee, Scott. Kind of an ugly one here. Tennessee without Derrick Henry wants to continue to win ugly. They may be able to do that here against this Houston team. So big number here in the spread. Tennessee I lost my number here. I got to imagine they're double-digit favorites here. Minus 10 at most places, 44.5 on that total. So thoughts on this one? We talked Deontay Foreman. The passing game has not been electric for Tennessee. Tannehill is, we haven't seen that massive game out of him. Maybe this is the week. In Houston, it's pretty much one name each and every week, because Brandon Cooks is always an interesting option, he being of all the targets there with that Houston Texans team. So this one shouldn't take us long. I don't see a ton here. Not much I really like in the betting markets here either. So quick thoughts here, Titans-Texans.
Yeah, I'm not going to click on anybody's name that's over there for the Texans. There's just no way. And then you mentioned Tennessee. I don't mind A.J. Brown possibly in this spot. I think, he could be a guy that could potentially go off. I don't mind him. But other than that, I just don't really see anything that really stands out to me. I mean, last week you had Brown got bottled up by Lattimore, but so I think he may be a guy that may be forgotten this week. So I don't mind him in this spot.
Yeah, I don't hate him. It's one of those classic bounce back spots where people were on him last week. He disappointed. There's a lot of excitement for Marcus Johnson in the season-long streak. So people adding him, maybe that bleeds over into some DFS ownership. But I do like the A.J. Brown bounce back. And I like Cooks a lot more than you do. Tennessee's allowed the most fantasy points to wide receivers. It's not even close, to be honest. So he's the one guy that they're going to go to. They're probably playing from behind, which means they're probably throwing the majority of the game. I just don't see anybody on Tennessee. That defense playing better, but Brandon Cooks is going to get his looks and still too super cheap. So Cooks, and I don't mind the A.J. Brown call on the other side.
The Texans haven't scored more than 9 points in their last 4 road games. So that's little bit something to keep in mind. So I definitely like the Titans here minus this 10. I think the Titans are obviously to me, they're going to score 24 to 28 points. I'm certain. So, I mean, if I'm only getting 10 or so there from Houston, I like Tennessee in this spot.
Yeah, that's a great point. Those road numbers are pretty atrocious there for Houston. So likelihood that Tennessee rolls. Great point there. Next game, we got Miami and the Jets. Pretty small spread on this one. Dolphins minus 3 on the road, 45.5 on the total. Sounds like we're getting Tua back at quarterback for Miami. Jets side, we're recycling old Joe Flacco here, Scott. He is the new starting quarterback for the New York Jets. So what does that do for Jamison Crowder, Corey Davis, Elijah Moore? I mean, they do have some weapons there in the passing game. As far as the running game goes, again, a team that it was Michael Carter for a while. Now it's Michael Carter, it's Ty Johnson, it's Tevin Coleman. Those three-headed backfields are really tough to trust. Miami side, we'll keep an eye on the injuries. Doesn't sound like Will Fuller is going to be back this week, and we'll keep an eye on Devontae Parker. So could be a lot of Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. And I actually love this spot for Myles Gaskin, Scott. I mean, his yards per carry is lower than what yours or I would be if we were running the ball. I mean, this guy is about 1.8 yards per carry over the last 2 weeks, but the Jets so giving two running backs here, just give up a ton of production. So I want to trust Myles Gaskin. This is going to be one I debate all the way to Sunday. So you like him in this spot here? Do you trust him enough? And what else do you like in here in this game?
I mean, you got to play Gaskin. I think every game that the Jets have played, the opposing running backs has scored at least once. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to go back and look, but off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that's the case. And another guy here though too, Chris, is the Jets have been pretty bad against tight ends too. So I do like some Gesicki as well. Even though he hasn't scored in a road game, I do think Gesicki is a guy that Tua does like to look to. And last year, just kind of looking here, the Dolphins, obviously they played twice, division game. They won 24-0 at home and 20-3 in New York. So now they're going to roll out Flacco against a team they only scored 3 points in 2 games. So I think that's pretty interesting. So I think I might even look at the Miami defense here against the Jets a little bit. But, I think Gaskins is definitely a guy you got to consider, and then Gesicki as well.
As far as spread total goes, I kind of like the Jets here at home, but then they go to Flacco. That makes me a little bit nervous. Then I'm leaning the under a little bit, as both these offenses could struggle a little bit. Point is, I don't have any strong leans yet on this game as of Wednesday. Anything here for you? -3 or 45.5?
No, when there's games like this that are crappy, when you got 2 crappy teams, you got like a mid-level over/under. My next thought would be, do I want to bet the under in the first half of this game? These are games that, maybe are a little bit slower in the first half. A team isn't out in front. They haven't picked up the pace yet. So a lot of times teams, that first half doesn't matter to them if they're winning or losing. They don't need to pick up the pace. Maybe adjustments are made at halftime. So a lot of times where I get 2 crappy offenses like this, maybe I look at playing an under in the first half here. We might get it at, 22, 23, somewhere around those lines. So if I can get it over 21, I think that might be something that you might want to consider.
Yeah, I like it. All right, let's head out west. Next game. This one should be fun. Cincinnati and the Raiders here. Cincinnati -1. This one's kind of swung. It was Raiders. Now it's the Bengals favored. A big 49 on the total. So this one, I like a lot of Cincinnati pieces here, Scott. You look at this Vegas defense, and they're very giving to running backs, to quarterbacks. So Mixon, a guy that's going to get a ton of work here. Burrow's always intriguing because you compare him with a Chase or with a Higgins or both. Vegas, that side I struggle a little bit with. I mean, Waller's an easy answer, but do we trust Derek Carr? Do we trust Josh Jacobs kind of in a timeshare right now with Kenyon Drake and no Henry Ruggs? So Renfro's been solid, but do we trust him? Brian Edwards? There's just a lot of questions on that side. So I'm liking Cincinnati here DFS-wise, and I think Cincinnati coming off the bye, I think they win this game as well. The Raiders kind of struggle a little bit. Started out hot and have really come back to reality. The Chiefs really slapped them around. I think Cincinnati probably wins this one pretty handily. So all the Bengals for me here, Scott.
Yeah, Mixon's a guy I wish they'd give the ball to more than 15 times. I mean, the last 4 games, that's about what they've been limiting him to, but he scored a touchdown his last 6 games. In week 8 and 9, he ended up with 2 touchdowns. So, he's been getting around 4 or 5, receiving catches per game. I really do like Mixon here. I just wish he would get, maybe 20, 25 carries, maybe get a little bit more. The Raiders are pretty good against wide receivers. Against the running back, they're 23rd in points. So I think Mixon definitely has a pretty good opportunity. Like I said, with the Raiders against the wide receivers, yeah, we saw Tyreek Hill burn them last week for 2, but before that, in 9 games, they had only given up 5 receiving touchdowns. So I think that's something that we got to kind of keep in mind, even though Jamar Chase does seem like he's a must start, especially in season long. But I think this is a pretty good secondary. And then we've seen Eastern's own Max Crosby create a lot of havoc. But I mean, this is a game here. You got two teams that are underperforming. Both of them should be, should be in a little bit better position, especially with the Bengals here losing the Jets. I got to imagine they're a little bit bruised. They got to be focused a little bit more. So I think really in reality, I had the Bengals as a better team at the start of the season. So I'm just going to roll with that here. I think I'm just going to go with the Bengals in this spot. So for me, I think the Bengals could pull it out here by 10, but I do think this game will have some points scored. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I really like Mixon in this spot. I like the passing game too. And you mentioned, we'd like to see more out of him, but 5 and 6 targets in the passing game in 3 of the last 4 weeks, 25 or more DraftKings points in 3 of the last 4 as well. So playing well. Vegas been very giving to running backs, like I mentioned, 9th most fantasy points allowed on the season. Have not been much better over the last month, and the Raiders have allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. So again, in lineups I don't have Mixon, I'm probably thinking Burrow and stacking him up with a Chase or a Higgins. All right, Dallas, Kansas City next, Scott, probably the premier game on the slate. Chiefs small favorites here at -1.5, a big 55. So both teams coming off massive wins, tons of points for Dallas, mainly in the first half. Behind Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Ezekiel Elliott, 2 touchdowns in that game. We had Michael Gallup returning for Dallas. So that offense back at full strength. And then we saw the Chiefs really put it on the Raiders behind a huge game from Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill scoring twice, Kelsey involved, and of course, Darrell Williams very much involved as well. Now, CEH, sounds like there was some optimism he may return. They may wait a week or two on CEH. So we may get another week here of Darrell Williams. So, Scott, this is the game everybody's going to target in DFS. Everybody's going to stack it a million different ways. So do you see any early signs of ways that we can get a little bit different from this one? Because this one will be very, very popular this week on FanDuel and DraftKings.
Yeah, I think both quarterbacks are going to be really popular. And I think obviously the receivers on both sides will be popular. But both sides really are pretty tough, have been tough recently against wide receivers. The Cowboys haven't allowed more than 2 passing scores in any game since the season opener. And I mean, on the other side too, you look at Dallas. Dallas has been pretty tough too. They haven't allowed any more than 2 passing touchdowns since week 5. So it's going to be pretty interesting here. I mean, both teams have been playing well defensively, better than you would think. But there are some guys here I think has some pretty good matchups. I do like Dalton Schultz here against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are bottom in the league against tight ends, so I think he's in a really good spot. I don't mind that, but Chris, for some reason, I think this is a spot that I think to get some leverage, if maybe you go with some of these running backs, maybe like an Elliott, I think might be a decent play. Maybe even a Darrell Williams if there is no CEH. I think we might see this game underperform a little bit than what everybody thinks. So I think especially here being in Kansas City, I think we might see a game in the mid-20s and not the mid-30s or even the 40s as some people expect. So I'm going to give a little bit of credit here to the Chiefs defense. I just think everybody still thinks they've been playing like crap as they started out the beginning of the season. But I think this game here has the potential to be an underperformer.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the under in this game, and it's scary going in under in a Chiefs-Cowboys game because you sit and you think, well, there could be 1,000 points scored in this game. But I agree. I think we're kind of discounting the Dallas defense. The Kansas City defense has looked a lot better, and Dallas, if they can, they want to run the ball. They want to win ugly. They don't want to be in a huge shootout. So you go back to that Atlanta game. Some of that was, 2 touchdowns by Zeke. They get a defensive touchdown. So they're not the team winging the ball all over the field. So I think taking an underweight approach is the way to go here. And maybe it burns you, but you can't be on everything. You can't stack everything. I think we're in lockstep here on this one. So I like the Zeke call. Maybe go to Amari Cooper, who Lamb had the big game. People are going to go back to him. Michael Gallup is cheap, so he's naturally going to have some ownership. Maybe Cooper's the way to go on that Dallas side. And I agree on the Darrell Williams call. He's the guy that the least heralded name of that big trio of Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey. Those guys are always going to have ownership. Maybe Darrell Williams is forgotten here, but I do like that under. And I think Dallas wins this game. I think this could be a big statement win for them, but really like that under as of now. So last game we got, Scott, Arizona and Seattle. Arizona obviously still dealing with big-time injuries here with Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins. Kyler sounds optimistic. It's tough to trust the player. They're always going to be like, yeah, I'm ready. But it sounds as encouraging as it's been. He sounded close last week, so I think they were just cautious with him last week. Probably thought, hey, we can probably beat Carolina without him. They were wrong. So we'll see what happens there. And again, we'll update that as we get closer to Sunday. Seattle, first time in Russell Wilson's career as a starter, he was shut out in Green Bay. So two offenses coming off a horrible performances. Do we want to go back to anything here? I mean, do we want to go to Russell Wilson, pair him with one of those receivers? Can we go back to, say, a James Conner in a great spot here against the Seattle defense that struggled against the run? 2 touchdowns allowed to A.J. Dillon last week. So I do like Conner if Kyler Murray is back. I think that's kind of the caveat there. But Scott, lots of questions in this game. Who do you like going back to here, or are you just avoiding this one?
Yeah, I think this game actually has the potential to put up some points, especially if Kyler Murray plays, especially with Wilson back in. We saw Wilson struggle last week, but I don't think, with a whole nother week of practice, I think he's going to be a lot better up. But you mentioned Conner. I think he is in a great spot. Seattle is 31st against running backs so far this year with points being scored. I mean, he scored 4 straight weeks. So I think that he's definitely a guy I'm going to have to consider in this spot here, especially as bad as Seattle's been. And then on the other side for Seattle, I mean, it does, like I said, Russell Wilson struggled a little bit last week. The Cardinals have been tough, but I think Metcalf is in a pretty decent spot to where Seattle is gonna, if they do get down, I think, if they do throw the ball, Metcalf's going to be the main guy here. I think he looks to. So this one for me is still something I kind of want to shake out. Obviously, to see game flow, I think is going to be important in this game. I think this game picks up a lot of pace if Kyler Murray's in. But I think if you end up getting Colt McCoy, I think this game is going to slow down a little bit. They're going to rely a little bit more on Conner. So I want to see what happens there before I start thinking about any sides of this Seattle piece. I think Seattle's offense is really going to be determined on what kind of pace they end up playing. So like I said, if they play a faster pace, I do like some of these Seattle guys. But if Murray's out and they end up running the ball, I think that could take away, because Seattle's historically slow anyway. So I think that this game will be a slower game, but maybe Murray pushes up the pace a little bit, but I think that's the only way that could happen.
Yeah, this one, I don't have any strong leans as of now. If Kyler's in there again, I do like Conner. I want to trust Russell in this passing game, but we'll see. I think this is going to be another one that kind of underperforms a little bit. So that will wrap up our initial look at the NFL slate for Week 11. Hopefully you guys enjoy this early look. If you have any feedback, please reach out to us on Twitter at Woodward Bets. Make sure you guys are following that page. Scott is at G_Risen. I am at Beer Makers Fan. Make sure you are also following the network at Woodward Sports. So, Scott, I'd love to dive into NBA DFS here. We just don't have the time. Don't want to go too long, but we can't leave the people without some best bets here. So a lot of NBA on the slate here tonight. Anything standing out? If you're looking for NFL best bets, come on back on Sunday. We'll give you a handful of best bets, props that we really like for the NFL slate on Sunday morning. Again, we do that every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and we take your questions live on YouTube. So you guys got questions, head over and join us on Sunday. If you got questions before that, send it to us, and we do that every Friday, our Sit Start segment, where we'll cover your sit starts, your dynasty questions, DFS questions, whatever it may be. We'll take the top 5 and answer them live on the show on Friday. But Sunday, our big NFL spectacular. But Scott, we got to get the people some best bets here for Wednesday night in the NBA. So what do you got? What's jumping off the page for you here tonight?
Well, I got 2 things that I think so far that I do like. I like the under 208.5 in the New York Knicks Orlando game. That Knicks defense has been playing pretty well so far. We've been riding a few of these unders for the Knicks, so I'm gonna roll with that one as well. And then one more total for you, Chris. I like the over in that Laker-Milwaukee game, over 221 at this point. I think both teams are going to score. I just don't like how the Lakers have been playing defense. It just seems like they haven't been pressing it all that much. And I think Giannis and the boys here are going to have their way. So I think that'll be a pretty high scoring game.
All right. I have 4 best bets for you here tonight. I didn't want to limit it to, there's 4 things I really like on this NBA slate. So we're giving you 6 picks here tonight. Scott giving you those 2. I'm going to start with a total, Scott. I like the over in the Pistons-Pacers game here tonight. 2 teams that are very, very bad. So I don't think there's going to be a ton of defense played in this game. So I really like the over. I think there'll be points in that game. Looks like about 205 is the number I can find there at most shops. So that will be my first pick. Second pick, I'm going with Brooklyn here tonight. I know it's a back-to-back. I know they just got stomped by Golden State, which we had as a best bet yesterday. But I think they rebound in a big way here. Cleveland going to be without most of their team here tonight. Now Evan Mobley out as well, the star rookie. So Cleveland rolling in with a skeleton crew. This feels like a get-right spot for Brooklyn. So I don't mind laying the 9.5 on them tonight. I'm going to go in that Milwaukee game as well, Scott. I think the Bucks roll here at home. The Lakers, without LeBron James, just not the same team. Feels like a spot Milwaukee should really put up a ton of points, like you mentioned. I think they win easily. So another big spread. I don't like giving too many big spreads here, but I feel really good about the Bucks minus the 9, and I'm going to give you one underdog here as well. I love Sacramento in the spot against Minnesota, a team. The record doesn't indicate. I think they've been playing some pretty good basketball here of late, and I think they're the much better team than the Minnesota Timberwolves. So plus 2.5 at most spots, so that's what we'll roll with. There is a +3 over at FanDuel. So 4 best bets for you here tonight in the NBA. Again, the over 205 in Indiana and Detroit. I like Brooklyn at home minus 9.5. The Bucks at home minus 9. And the Sacramento Kings on the road in Minnesota plus 2.5. So 6 picks on the board, Scott. Hopefully that record takes a jump up, 4-4 for the week. Hopefully we're sitting at 10-4 as we tune in tomorrow. So tomorrow, come on back. We'll take an updated look at the NFL injury reports, spreads. We'll talk some NBA. We'll talk some general sports, and we always want to talk to you. So again, you want to chime in on the show, please reach out to us on Twitter at Woodward Bets. Scott, kind of a long show today, but final thoughts for the people. What do we got?
Yeah, appreciated drawing real long today so that my girlfriend out there has got all the leaves done when I get done doing the show. So hopefully we drag that out long enough that I can go out there and say, "Oh, you're all done." You know how that works. But yeah, Chris, I'm going to go out there and see what kind of weather we got out there. I might have to go out there to that football field. I'm telling you, I'm going to boot one of them balls through that uprights. But we'll see if we can get any video of that for you.
Speaking of Charlie Brown, Snoopy, I can already see the whoop, and you're laying on your ass after trying a field goal in the wet weather. But please video if you do. And everyone out there, thank you again for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. We're having some fun here with Woodward Bets. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the show. Hopefully you're cashing in on some of these free bets that we are handing out. But we appreciate each and every one of you. So for Scott, for our boy Spencer and Easy behind the glass, we appreciate you fellas as always. I am Beer. We are Woodward Bets. Thank you for watching. Best of luck in your bets, and we'll see you tomorrow.